Well, hey guys, welcome back. And it looks like episode 3 on my $100 small block Chevy. So far we've torn it apart, had a pressure test, which it passed, let it sit in a hot tank for a night, and then gave it a Magnaflux, which it also passed. So we're doing pretty good so far. Next up is I'm going to get all the main caps torqued on because I'd like to take a measurement of the main bore housing and make sure it's in spec, and if it's not in spec, we'll deal with that. But first things first is I got to find out. So I guess to get on with it, I'm going to have to lay this block down, make it easier to work on. So one of the first things I'm going to do is, even though this is pretty clean after coming out of the hot tank, there's there's still a little bit of muck and dirt and grime here and there. So I like to take my wire wheel and just kind of give it a buff. And just kind of clean up the pads where they go. And I do the same to the bottom of the caps. I just give them a little buff just to make sure there's no grit, old oil and grime. And I probably should have took a little photo or even a video of before I did this. Just to show the difference how it made. I wasn't thinking there. So now that I've got that dealt with, we can go ahead and get these things fixed on here. Alright, so now that I got them kind of situated in there, better go get the oil. Right, acquired the oil. So I like to put a little bit of oil right on the top where the shoulder of the bolt contacts the main cap. And then some oil on the threads. Don't be shy with the oil. And we just run them all down. like the right amount of ugga chuggas to me. No, I'm just kidding. Need a little bit of a rag for my hands here. Where did I put those? I've been rearranging the shop, and everything's kind of in a different spot now. With everything being in a spot that's not where it typically used to be, makes it a little hard to kind of find everything. So, I don't know, let's do a little pan. What do you think? Now we'll start off at the Bridgeport, make our way around. A radial drill. I think it's looking pretty good. Anyways, let's get back on with this. So, now we need to torque these up. To torque these up, I got this Clevite bearing catalog, and inside this catalog has pretty much all your common engines anyways, hundreds of engines in here. And it gives you all the specs. It gives you the torque specs, it gives you the diameters of the crankshaft, the oil clearance, the housing bores. So lots of information in this book, very important information in this book. Basically, we can call this the blueprint because it's books like these with information like these, which is what us engine builders use to remanufacture our engines to spec. So these are basically the blueprints. There isn't really any said blueprint when we're doing these engines. So not like the blueprints I do or use when I'm at work, where I have actual drawings with dimensions that I have to manipulate a workpiece to. So not like that. So we'll come on through the General Motors side, and we come into the 350 Chevrolet engine, and here's all the specs for our 350 Chevrolet engine. So by looking in our book here, we can see that our main bearing torque spec is going to be 75 foot-pounds. So we set our torque wrench up at, I usually start her a little bit less. I go around, set them up around 50. Make sure everything feels good. Everything felt pretty good. Everything was consistent. I didn't feel any galling or binding. So we'll set this to our final torque spec and do another pass. So with all them torqued up, we got a measure here. So a couple various ways to take a measurement. You could use an inside micrometer and go in there and check that with those. You could use a telescoping gauge and check that with a mic. Or you could use a bore gauge. Me personally, I like using bore gauges. Get the bore gauge. So here I have my sun and dial bore gauge. This one reads in tenths. It's a nice gauge. I typically keep it over my honing machine. And we're going to set this one up. So once again, we come back to our book for our numbers, and here we can see we have our housing bore minimum, maximum diameter. We have our oil clearance minimum, maximum clearance, and this is the crankshaft journal minimum, maximum diameter. So this is the number that we're going to set our gauge up to. So now that we have our sizes, I've gone ahead and I have set my mic to the high side of our limit, which was 2 inch 641 thou and 6/10. And now that that is set, I can take this mic and I can get it set up on the anvils and get our needle adjusted to the 0. So now, oh, there we go. I'm looking at the screen now trying to drive it, and it makes it a little funny. So now I got my dial bore gauge set up to the size of the mic, which is to the high side of the print. And now this gauge will act as a comparator to the housing bore diameters. So let's get set up to measure those. Alright, so now I got my gauge set up, camera set up, block set up. I have a scribble pad here too. I want to record these measurements. These are numbers I'm going to want to keep. And basically we just put it inside the housing bore and we compare it to our gauge. So this one's telling me that I'm about 7/8. Where we go? Right, so about 8/10 smaller than the gauge. This one here, this one puts us at 9/10. Another one at 8/10. So that's pretty good. We're staying within a tenth. One thou. So we're right on the minimum. And again with 1 thou. So by 1 thou, I mean I'm reading 1 thou below my 0, which means that this block housing bores, they're on the low because we have a 1 thou range of limit that we're allowed. So that's a good sign. Now we can get on with the next form of measurement. So now that my housing bore diameter is checked out and I'm happy with the results, I've got one more scrutinization I'm going to do before I start cutting on this block. And that is, I want to come and I want to measure the lifter bores. And I just want to make sure there's nothing silly going on in there. I've actually in the past, many years ago, I've put a whole engine together, and as I'm putting the lifters in, what do we got? We got a problem. And now we got to take this whole engine apart and bush a lifter bore. So I like to check that before I get to that point, because that's just pain in the ass, really. And it's a little embarrassing too when you call your customer and yeah, it's going to be a little longer. I missed a thing and it doesn't look good. It's embarrassing. And I'd rather just fix it now if there's an issue. So I've got my Starrett bore gauge set up here. And basically I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to check every single bore. Nothing exciting, but I need to know, and it's all part of the job, right? So far we're looking good. This makes me so happy. This block is in such good condition. Oh. Did I mention it was $100? Oh, that's just wonderful. Carry on like this, please. Carry on like this. Oh my. So this gauge reads in half thous or half thousandths. Forgive me, I'm a little bit of a lazy speaker, but you know, there's quite a space between the marks. So you can actually break it down visually within a couple of tenths accurately. And within a couple of tenths is what I've got on all 16 of these lifter bores. And I'm excited about this. You know, I mean, I got a good deal on the block. It's going to make for some good footage, some of that content that we're after, and you know, I'm just excited. I personally don't have anything to put a small block Chevy into, and to be honest, I think I own maybe 15, 16 small block Chevys. I got them all stashed away in my storage locker. But if I keep seeing them for sale for $100, $150 on my local Craigslist or Facebook, I'm gonna nab them up because these things are gems. These are awesome engines, and even if I don't have anything to drop one in there, it doesn't mean I won't one day. And it's not gonna stop me from building them to sell them, which is gonna be the main purpose for this. We're gonna build a complete short block, and I got some heads laying around too. I just got to make a decision which ones I want to pick. Because this block is coming out so nice, 4-bolt main, standard bore, I might have a nice set of heads to put on here to sweeten the deal. So that's awesome. And yeah, so next up for me is over here. I got a 400 Ford engine, and I'm gonna be cutting in one-piece rear main seal where the two-piece rear main seal is. So this is something I do to most of the small block Fords. Actually, pretty much all of them. The 289s, 302s, 351s, Windsors, 351 Clevelands, the 351M, and the 400. So I come in there, I cut this out, bore it out as you will for a one-piece rear main seal, and that fixes up any issues. So this is next in line for machine work, and I may or may not post some footage on that. I got a video already I uploaded many years ago of a 289 block I cut the rear main seal in, and yeah, I might do another one. I watched that video the other day, and I was maybe not so personable, but maybe a little robotic, and it was my first video or two, you know, give me a break. People seem to enjoy it nonetheless, so maybe I'll get some footage on that, but here I am rambling on. This is next. I'm going to get this cut. I've already bored and resurfaced the decks on this block, and once I get this machined out, I can bring it over to the hone and get it honed. So at the very least, if I don't get some footage on this rear main seal modification I do, we might bring a camera over there to the hone during the honing day on this. But I'll get to the point as I carry on some more. Being that this is the next one up for machining, when it's done, we're going to set up my block boring fixture, and we're going to start cutting on this 350 Chevy that we've been measuring today. And we'll bring it over to probably the typical 30 thou overbore, just because locally that's the available piston. And we'll bring it down to, we'll square the decks, then we'll bring them down to a 9-inch deck height. And we'll get all the chamfers taken care of, and then we'll bring that over to the hone too. So lots of good stuff coming up. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I'm not too boring, and I hope you follow along, subscribe, like, comment, tell me what you think, and yeah, hopefully I won't take too long to get some more content for us. Alright, have a good one, guys.